it's super important to think about the why. And it's like kind of the first questions I ask people, like, why Mexico? I don't know, maybe health. And you're like, okay, what, you know what? Maybe there's nothing is like back home. It's very different. But you know what? My health is so good here. So I'm super happy. I'm gonna go through this learning curve because it is a curve. You're in a new country, new rules, new bureaucracy, everything. But you're like, let me try it and let me adapt. Let me learn about the culture. Let me learn Spanish. This is an adventure, positive. I'm gonna see it this way. Really thrive.
Hi guys, we're back with This Might Be a Bad Idea, and we are welcoming our guest, Mari of MaxLife Yucatan. Mari, thank you for coming on and being our guest. So tell us a little bit about you and how did you come to be part of MaxLife and what do they actually do?
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for having me join. I'm really excited for this. Well, my name is Mariana, or Mari, shorter for friends and clients that I love. And I'm a Yucatecan born and raised. I'm here from Merida, Yucatan. I am an immigration lawyer. So MaxLife Yucatan was formed to help clients kind of understand their obligations regarding residency, be able to move to Mexico legally, a little bit of property added on later, and right now a little bit of real estate. So our job, let's say, I call it kind of like a relocation law firm. So we try our best to help clients to be able to move to the country legally, but also have like resources to be able to do it in a way that is as stress-free as possible. So that's kind of my job in the company.
How did you start with MaxLife?
You know, when I was growing up, I had a lot of friends that I was doing volunteering, and I had a lot of friends that were moving from Canada, United States, some from Europe. And I always heard them saying like, oh, I need to go to immigration. I need to do this and that. And I hate it. And it just, it caught my attention because bureaucracy, I feel like in every country, but I mean, no, Mexico is kind of confusing. I think you might agree with that. I decided to study law and got into that part of immigration. And I really liked like helping when I was doing my social service after my university at immigration. I was in a part of immigration that did nothing. I was just sitting down, waiting, and I was like, I hate this. So I would go down to the information booth, and I really liked like hearing what people were asking, and I would see what they would answer to them. And I really enjoyed it. And so that's how, kind of like because of my friends and also because I really enjoyed my time there, that I decided like, okay, this can be easier. It definitely can be more simple. And I felt like they weren't giving them the answers that they needed at the time. Like it was like very short, very to the point, but the client would, or the person would leave and be like, I'm so confused. And so I was like, this cannot be that hard. It needs to be simple. And they actually offered me to stay. But the problem when you work at an office, like at the government, is that you're very limited to what you can do. I really like changing process and making it better. And so I was like, no, I think maybe if I do it on my own, you probably have more control over it and just be able to make it a more enjoyable process for people.
So you've been doing that how long?
So it was around 2018 that I started, not officially like MaxLife Yucatan, just like on my own. So now it's been, I think like 6-7 years almost.
Oh,
and
nice.
it's been a learning curve. Thank you.
What do you feel like was the main question that was causing people stress when you were seeing that disconnect?
Yeah, so one of the main things, I guess, were what specifically kind of documents do I need to provide in my process, right? I feel like, I mean, right now you can go online, look for what kind of documents you need, but every like immigration office has a little bit more things on practice. And so sometimes they would think that they had everything, they would go. Of course, right now everything is with an appointment. If you go to that appointment and you don't have those things, you need to get another appointment and go back, and it's time lost. So they would go with all these documents and they're like, I'm ready. And then turns out something was missing that wasn't on the website, wasn't on the webpage, and that would make them lose time. So that was a big one. And another one I think would be just not understanding well, like what obligations they had as a resident. It was like, okay, like what do I really need to be doing? Is this necessary? Is this not for me to do or to comply with?
I noticed even when we were getting our immigration process in the beginning, there were a lot of times where people be in the line next to us and they go up for their immigration and they would say, well, you need this, you need that. And then they'd have to go back out and then come back in another day. So you're just wasting a lot of time. And I noticed that when working with you guys, you gave me a folder, everything was in it. It looked very simple. They kind of checked off and then we were, done as soon as we actually got to meet the person. So talking about the process. So what is that typical process for someone who is an expat wanting to move to Merida or Mexico? What does that process look like for immigration?
Well, that's a very important question, and I feel like it all depends on the client, but just like a ballpark, like starting with understanding your strategy, right? Everybody and their circumstances comes with a specific strategy and where you're going to start. Typically, when you're an expat that wants to move to Mexico, you start at a consulate back home. So you understand what type of residency you would be eligible. And then it's important that you make an appointment at a consulate so that you can provide the necessary documents or financials and get your Mexican visa. So I do have some clients that have gotten here. They're like, I want to stay. And I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
but you have to go back to the consulate and start there. So that would be like the first step to start with. Then after you get your Mexican visa, that's when you would then enter Mexico and finalize the process here in Mexico. That specific process is called canje or exchange in English. And really, when you do that and you get your residency card, that's when you're like a full-on resident and the time starts counting as a resident, right? So that always is good to understand because, as you know, there's also circumstances where you could start in Mexico. For example, you have family members, but pretty much everybody else needs to start at a consulate back home. So that's really important part of the planning, like understanding where you need to start and what you need to provide.
I know you kind of talked about some people come here and they're like, oh, yeah, now I want to move here. Is that where you probably see most of the surprises that come up when people are trying to move to Mexico? Or are there other times where their surprises happen that they weren't aware of?
I would say that probably that's where you see the biggest surprises. Just because, of course, coming here, it's good to always come and see if you like it. I think that's always a good thing, see if you like the place where you want to move. But definitely just bringing all your things and expecting that, okay, my next move is here. It's like, oh, no, no. And then there's expenses involved, right, in going back. And maybe, I don't know, if you wanted to do something specific here with your residency and you cannot because you have to wait for the appointment at the consulate, that's always when I get the surprises. Yesterday, actually, just like an example, right? I was at immigration waiting for a client, and this lady approached me and she's like, oh, you speak English? And I was like, yeah. Oh, I have a question. The problem is that I came to do my exchange. So she started well. She started at the consulate, came and did this exchange, and they didn't tell her that the canje or the exchange is not done in one day. And so she was like, I have to leave tomorrow. I have a trial. Like, I have to be there. Yeah. And I'm like, well, if you leave, because she's like, I'm going to leave and come back. And I'm like, if you leave, you're going to lose the process. And she's like, really? Like, nobody told me that. Because sometimes I think, oh, the exchange is I go to immigration, they stamp me, and that's it. And that's not really what happens. There's a whole process in that section, right? So I feel like that, yeah, like coming here, either not getting good information or just coming here expecting it to happen is where I find the most stress, I would say, for clients.
I guess, is there a place that people could go to that maybe aren't in Mexico that they could find that information, at least know what steps they need to take so they're not skipping and, of course, leading to stress?
Yes, for sure. So I think one of the main things would be go to a Mexican consulate webpage on the place where you live. So, like example, if you live in Nevada, check Las Vegas Mexican consulate. On the section of visas, you can kind of get some information about that. Some clients have told me that YouTube or podcasts of people who have actually made the move have been really enriching because they can kind of understand a little bit more. And of course, if you're really serious, I always think like having a meeting with a professional and just like expressing all those doubts and your circumstances and having a strategy planned apart from doing your due diligence, which I think is great, investigating online is always a good step, right? Because then it's personalized to your own case and your own timings.
For us personally, reached out to the Philadelphia consulate. They were actually really personable. It was one guy who conversated with me the whole time and told me the process, told me the paperwork. We scheduled the appointment. I met him at the appointment, told me everything I need to do. He told me about the whole canje process. And then what I did is the next step was I reached out to your team, help me through the next steps, because again, it is overwhelming, the timing of what to do, what to do next. I didn't know where I should stay or what I should do. And I just asked all my questions to you guys, and you guys were a lot of help, meeting me at immigration and walking me through the process. So that was really beneficial. So what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that people make that cause all this stress later on?
Well, definitely, I think one of the biggest mistakes, and I was actually talking to my assistant today about that, is not considering the timing, right? I feel like there's a lot of information online where it says like, oh, or even the consulate sometimes. They fail a little bit in saying, oh, yeah, you just go and they exchange it for you. And you're like, oh, well, it sounds simple. They don't tell you, oh, there's an appointment needed. First of all, there's offices that are without appointment, but most are with an appointment. Right now in Merida, it's like 3 weeks to an appointment. So it's like you come with the idea of, I'm just going to go a week and get it done. And it doesn't turn out to be that way. So definitely timings are super important and cause a lot of stress to clients. And just, I would say more of the practice matters also. For example, you mentioned about staying in a hotel. We normally tell clients don't stay in a hotel, even if you can do Airbnb, because some immigration offices are very picky and they're like, why are you staying in a hotel? So we just want to create the less friction possible to make your process stress-free. So timings regarding canje tend to stress people for sure. And then just changes with renewals, for example. I don't know if you probably heard a lot about this, but this past year they changed a lot family unit, which is like if I'm married to somebody and now I'm renewing, before my husband or didn't have to come with me. I got it through my husband, but he didn't have to come. But now it's like they have to go. There's another interview. You have to provide documentation. So that is not posted online. It's not. So it's like once you get there, if you didn't plan that ahead, it's like, oh, surprise, no? Now I need to take all this documentation. So it's about being very, very attentive to the minor changes that unfortunately are not always online.
I mean, we actually applied for Jeff as a familial unit. So, we wouldn't know any of the changes that were going on. So we rely on your team to help us throughout that process. So as someone who doesn't have that support, it becomes challenging. And, how can they get that support otherwise, unless they go through, a service like MaxLife?
With my experience, walking up there to the tent, seeing all those people sitting underneath the tent, without you guys, I would definitely be lost. I mean, because you would have no idea where to go, where to sit, when they're calling your name, when they're not calling your name. And as we know, you do sit there quite a bit of time. So, of course, having MaxLife there was, huge.
Yeah, I mean, my process, I was like, well, I'm booking a flight, but I need to know how long I need to stay because I don't know how long it's going to take. I didn't want to book it and I'm there for 3 days and then I have to leave. So I think I actually extended my trip, just in case, so we had enough time, but I think it took us 5 days, but you just never know. Right. So you want to make sure that you have that time padded in just in case.
Exactly. And Erica, something that about the renewals as well, and I think I say it because a lot of people have gone through this, and it's something that I'm trying to really talk about right now, is on the renewal date, Mexico uses day, month, year.
Right.
And I've literally had clients tell me like, you lose residency because they think it's the other way. It's month, day, year. So we try to like put them in a calendar. And like 3-4 months before, we're like, hey, it's time for your renewal in 3 months. But I mean, we can fail, right? So I always tell clients, please be sure to know that it's day, month, year, because that could cause a big problem if you don't know that
Yeah, I asked
Yeah,
Jeff, I was like,
huge
Little
I said,
details.
when's your expiration date? And he was like, oh, October. And I was like, I don't think
mistake.
so. And then we looked at it and it was,
Yeah,
it was July because of the day and the month, are flipped. And I
yeah,
was like, okay, well, that's good to know. So
yeah,
we remember on renewals that we need to do this in advance. Oh, yeah, that's a big one because I've been seeing that a lot on posts recently that people have lost it completely if they miss their expiration by one date, one day. So making sure that you realize that
yeah,
it's flipped. So
yeah.
that's a big one that's coming up a lot. Something that you assume people will think will be easy, but never is throughout the process.
No, a lot of things are
Yeah.
easy, honestly. I feel like if you come with the right mindset, I feel like, but there are a lot of clients that to tell me like how I just had one today. She's doing a change of to permanent and she was like, "Well, it's just I'm just going to go there, put my formats in and then they're going to print my card." And I'm like, "No, like
No.
it depends on the process, but more and more we have a lot of people coming in. And that is a
That's
big
the
load
issue.
of work for immigration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, definitely it's taking longer.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's not that it's taking longer that people think, oh, why is it taking longer now? No, it's always been 10
Right.
business days or 15 business days, but the office maybe had more time to do it. So I feel like one of those things that they think is easy is just doing the process in Mexico, when in reality, at the consulate, I've never seen a consulate take 10 business days to give you the visa because that's the timeline that the law says. 10 business days is always the same day or the next day. But at the Mexican immigration, that's when it takes the longest. And then people are surprised about that, or they're like, oh, I didn't think it was going to be that much of an issue, or even making the appointment.
Mhm.
I don't know if you found out or you knew that doing the appointment a few months back was at midnight, every
Yes.
night at
Yeah.
midnight.
You
Wow.
had to be up and
It was
be right
crazy.
there
Wow.
clicking right at midnight in order to get an appointment because there's so many people that are trying to schedule appointments and they just weren't open. Yeah, I see that a lot of flurry
Exactly.
of activity that people talk about it all the time in my WhatsApp groups with expats. It's funny because I'm just like, oh, I don't even think about it because I let your team do everything. So me, it was easy, and so that's why sometimes I'm just like, oh, my process was very different because I kind of relied on you guys to do everything. And I mean, I asked questions, obviously. I did make out a lot, even going to appointments for us for when we had to change our address, and I had to change that I got married, like all those things you have to change. And, people don't think about it as it's immigration, right? They're tracking your
Yeah.
address and everything. So can you talk a little bit more about some of those procedures as well?
Yeah, for sure. So the main obligations when you become a resident, like you mentioned, Erica, is that you notify them of changes. So I mean, I think the most that people do, I would say clients do, is change of address. And change of address has to be done even if you change the next house over. It always has to be done at the office where you're that takes care of where you're living. So if you change Merida, like in Merida, if you change houses, if you change from one neighborhood to another, you notify them. And the nice thing about this kind of process is that you don't have to physically go. Like an authorized person, either a lawyer or someone else, a friend, whatever, they can do it for you. And it's just one of those obligations that you have up to 90 days until that from that the day that you made that change to notify them. And if you don't do it, you could be subject to fines. Same thing with changes of nationality, change of names, also changes in marriage. And those are one of the things that I feel like in resolutions, they should kind of tell you that. Like you have these obligations, but normally they don't tell you. So you find out, for example, when you're going to do your renewal
Hmm.
and you put another address and they're like, oh, you didn't notify us
Mm.
about this. Here's your fine, right? So like those are one of the things that you have to be aware of, right? It's nothing difficult to do. It's just knowing that, okay, I've changed these things: address, nationality, marriage status, or work if you work in Mexico, and I need to notify immigration of this.
And what can those fines go up to? I mean, if somebody is caught with those not changed.
That specific fine depends on how long it took you,
Mm.
like if it was one day or 3 months or you never notify them. So it could start around 4,000 pesos. I mean, like 230 dollars and go up. But typically, yeah, typically it's just the fact that It's like, oh, like, why am I paying this if it was something
Yeah.
so simple for me to do? It was just something that you save, but
I know at the beginning you talked a little bit more about the real estate side of things that you're starting to go into that. Can you tell us a little bit more about that side of your business?
yeah, for sure. So for a time, like I mentioned before, MaxLife started more seeing like the need for immigration. Just in the past years, my associate, which is also my older sister, I'm very proud to say that because she's been my mentor and everything. She's the one that has done property law for a long time. And so we went in together in MaxLife now. And so we started doing, the process to supervise or to help clients purchase on the legal side. So be doing the bank trust or the Mexican LLC, which is typically how expats would purchase in Mexico. To not go so much deep into that, but we started also seeing the need of there not being really like a lot of control over real estate transactions in Merida. And now I'm really happy to see that they're going in with the license, they're going in with more certifications. I hope that that's going to help a lot, and I'm super happy about that. But now what we're doing is we do have certain listings. So we help our clients find the property that they're looking for, the property of their dreams, either to invest or to live in. And what we do is that if we represent you as a buyer's representative, which is what I'm trying to do now, is that we include our legal representation so that you both know how to purchase, the best way to purchase, and you have that, that handhold all the way through, apart from finding a property that fits your needs. And we have some listings both in Merida and in Cozumel. We're not directly focused on listings. I personally prefer more helping the client because it's what really I'm passionate about. Understanding like, why are you moving to Mexico? Like, why Mexico out of all the world? What do you like doing day to day? Do you see yourself in a coffee shop or being with friends? Or why are you moving here? And then finding that property that's like, wow, like lights their eyes. And I'm like, I really like that part. And so we have some listings that we think are interesting for clients as well that we have on our website. So I'm learning a lot about that. It's been a learning curve for sure. But it's really, really interesting.
I did see that in the past few months recently, they're requiring people to have a real estate license. Do you see that more now that people are actually licensed, or do you see that it's just people are just still picking up and showing people homes and trying to close deals?
I feel like it's a little mixed. Definitely the more I've gotten into with other colleagues and been in groups now with of real estate and everything, I feel like people are starting like, okay, we need to do this. A lot of people are we actually have courses starting tomorrow from the government, and I see a lot of people trying to do the right thing and going forward with it. But of course, there is a mix. There are people that probably will just do it under somebody else. I think that now the point would be for clients to know that there is going to be a license, there is a certification, and now when you come and you want to get the help from a professional to ask them, like, what is your certification? Do you have the license? Because notaries are going to start to ask it. Notary is the by excellence like the master broker here in Yucatan in Mexico. And so they're going to be asking, okay, who are the agents involved, putting it in the title. But in the end, it's always good, just like you would say, okay, I want an architect. What have you done? Same thing, I think, with a real estate agent. Like, what are your certifications or specifications, etc. But it's going to take a while. I think it's going to take a while, but I think we're going on the right course, hopefully. I mean, Erica, you know a lot more about that. You were in a country where it's a lot more serious in real estate.
It's funny. It's funny when I tried to buy our home here, it was working with a real estate agent, and he just kept saying to me, he was like, Miss Erica, the real estate here is very different in Mexico than it is in the States. And I was like, yes, I understand that, but I still feel like you should be representing me as the buyer, not the contractor or the seller. So, and I just felt like it was very conflicted when I was working with my real estate agent, because he was working for the builder and he was getting paid by the builder. So I didn't really have representation. And that's when I kind of, later in the process, reached out to your team to see if, you could help, and you guys, helped as much as you could. But it was a very stressful situation for me throughout the process, not feeling like I had that trust or someone that was an advocate for me. And that's what you're trying to do for your new people now. And that I feel like a lot of times people come here and they're looking for real estate agents. And as soon as you raise your hand, there's like 20 people reaching out to you that say they're real estate agents, but are they licensed? Are they benefiting you? They don't know. So I think that is sometimes troubling for expats who are looking for that help. So, like, how do you weed those people out?
And the thing is that I see a lot of that in Facebook. Like, I feel like, of course, it's work, so it's fine if people want to offer properties. But I see a lot. They ask like, "Oh, like I want to move to Mexico," and like 20 posts of 20 properties, and I'm like, "Well, do you even know what his budget is, or like what he wants in a day-to-day living?" So that's where I feel like, of course, this is not something that you learn straight away. You take the courses, you understand to know how to filter and how to help them. And so that's always something it's good. It's good for Yucatan. I'm glad that it's going on, and I hope that it keeps that way and it gets better.
I mean, the process in the States is, so much different because you have your listing agent, you have your buyer's agent, you have a title company, which is kind of like your notary that you have here. Then you have a home inspector that does an inspection of the property, which it's not really commonly done here, but it can be done, but it's not a common occurrence. So, it is very different here because people are like, do you have your home warranty? Do you have this? And I'm like, really happen here all the time. So how do you guarantee your house is okay? But, so those are the things that are very different that I've seen buying a home here versus selling and buying in the States. It has been interesting, and I've learned a lot for sure throughout the process. Yeah. So I see people making some changes, and I see people saying, oh, you can go to this person, they'll inspect your house, because it's not common, for somebody to actually walk through your house for inspection. You're getting people that are coming to you. Who are the people that are thriving here long term? Because, sometimes there is a turn, people come for a while and then they leave because, it doesn't work out. So who do you see that really thrives here in Mexico or Merida?
I thinking about that a lot. I feel like a lot of the trend that I see, and I'm going to start with something a little bit negative, but it's going to go positive after, is a lot of people try to move here and are like, okay, everything's going to be cheaper, or like comparing back home, like, but back home we do this, or back home we do that. And I totally understand. I mean, I'm not judging. It's normal to feel that way, but I do feel like the more you focus on the negative, or the more you don't remember your why. Like, there was not a why. I moved to Mexico. Right. You don't thrive here. I mean, it's super important to think about the why. And it's like kind of the first questions I ask people, like, why Mexico? Yeah. I don't know, maybe health. And you're like, okay, you know what? Maybe there's nothing is like back home. It's very different. But you know what? My health is so good here. So I'm super happy. I'm gonna go through this learning curve, because it is a curve. You're in a new country, new rules, new bureaucracy, everything. But you're like, let me try and let me adapt. Let me learn about the culture. Let me learn Spanish. Let me try to make friends. Let me try to make friends. I like not being alone. And I feel like those people that are resilient and they're like, this is an adventure, positive, I'm going to see it this way, really thrive. And also visiting before is super important. I feel like, I know everybody is different, and sometimes you can't, and it's just a situation. But if you visit before, you're like, okay, I think this could be it. Let me try. That also is a really good thing or tip that I've actually heard from clients tell me that it has helped them a lot. I don't know what you guys said. I mean, you've been here for a while now.
For me, I loved it. I loved the culture. I loved the people. It was just, I felt at home. I felt safe. One of the things that right now it's hitting us hard of why we moved here, because of the freezing temperatures back home. It's like -1 degrees back home. And, it's colder here, which is crazy. It was like 51 degrees the other morning.
Yes.
But compared to -1, 51 degrees, I think I'll take the 51 degrees and the snow. Yeah. So, that was I was like, I can't do another winter. And I was like, I don't want to sit here. I need to be in the sun, be able to soak in some vitamin D and relax. And, Jeff has, his health has gotten better, and he's and thriving and enjoying it. And that's why we came here. So we don't tend to think about, well, what we missed from America. You know, it's funny because my parents came and they were like, well, what about this? And what about this? And we're like, well, we don't think about that because we've just adjusted. This is how it is in Mexico and this is how we want to live, you know? So yeah, I definitely agree on that. So, I mean, if someone who is listening right now and thinking about the move to Mexico in the next year, what would you say realistically to them to expect emotionally, financially, logistically?
Yeah, I mean, definitely with the emotional, I would say expect like a curb. I think, of course, everybody says visiting is not the same as living. And I mean, it's definitely true. At first, you might find a lot of like, why did I do this? Or, like, why did I even think about this? But the more you think about your whys and the more you give it a try, I feel like, yes, it's going to be a curb. There's days that you're going to probably doubt your decision, but I'm sure that you'll get to a point that it's going to get well. So it's just being very patient. It's not going to be great, everything wonderful. And at the beginning, maybe it is great, but it's a curb, I think, emotionally. I would say also, I mean, in the terms of financial, I do have a lot of clients that tell me that at first financial, you do tend to spend more. And one of the reasons is, for example, if you're going to lease, you have to give deposit, you have to pay this and that. Or, for example, understanding where it's cheaper to buy this and where it's cheaper to buy that, so you're learning. So you might be spending a little bit more at the beginning, but I think the more you learn, like, oh, I can buy this here and it's cheaper, or maybe I can find some fresh produce here, the more you'll adapt to what locals do and the more you can plan on a budget. Because a lot of clients ask me like what budget should I have? And I'm like, well, this is what I spend, but of course my way of living might be very different to you. So just try out different things, but do expect that. Like, it's probably not going to be perfect at the beginning, but then the more you learn about your own like way of living, then you'll see where you can adjust certain things. And logistically, just like start planning ahead, like get all the information you can. There's going to be, I think that after dealing with bureaucracy here, you're going to be so much well prepared. You're going to be like, I took 13 things that I didn't think I needed, but just in case, right. You're going to, go through that and be like, I'm so ready. Like whatever they ask for me, I'm going to have it here. So just doing that, like being honest with getting all the information beforehand and just learning that you might have to take a few more things with you every time you do a paperwork so that you don't have to go there more than once. So, yeah.
And in true, this might be a bad idea fashion. Would you say moving to Mexico is a bad idea? And if so, for who and why?
I would say definitely it is a bad idea if you expect, for example, everything to be cheaper. If you expect perfection, if you compare everything to how it was back home, if you expect that, it's going to be such a bad idea. But if you treat it like an adventure, if you're like, oh, this is an adventure, let me try different things and let me adapt and get to know new people, I think it's going to be a great idea. Even if in the end you decide to move out because it didn't work out for you, I think you're going to be able to say, oh, I lived in Mexico and I did this and that, and it was such an experience, So having the right mindset with anything in life, but especially with moving, I think is going to make it a great idea or a bad idea.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Maddie. And thank you, MaxLife, for your time. Thank you for all your help with us, for sure.
Yes. Thank you.
No, thank you guys for inviting me.